Hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel of Bethel Evangelical Free Church Hanley. I'm Pastor Charmley. This is another video in a series on Derbyshire churches, particularly Derbyshire churches in and around the Peak District. I say in and around because while the church here, St Michael and All Angels of Kniverton, I think it's pronounced Kniverton, but let's give the K something of its meaning. St Michael and All Angels Kniverton is near the Peak District, so it's not far from the town of Ashbourne. I don't think it's actually in the Peak District. There's been a church here probably since about the 12th century, maybe earlier. The current building is a very simple example of medieval parish church. There's a nave here, chancel, there's a tower at the west end, which we'll see obviously when we get outside. It supports a tiny little village. It's just beside the road. The church is actually, or the road is actually on the north side of the church, and actually quite close to the church, but the main entrance is on the south side over here. So here we are. It's one of my favourite little churches. It's a funny, quirky little building, and it very much illustrates how churches, even these little village churches, have changed over time to reflect changes in worship in the Church of England. So let's have a look around and point out some of the details in this very, very tiny little building. Well, we start here at the west end. If there's any interference with the image, it must be from the church lighting. It's not a problem with my camera. You can see we've got your simple 19th century pews, step up to the chancel. The chancel arch has a very definite lean to it, a southward lean. In fact, the whole church has a bit of a southward lean to it. It's built on the side of a hill, and the south is downhill. Now at the back there's a couple of interesting features that illustrate how things have changed over the years. So first of all, because we're at the west end, of course, we have the font. The font has the date 1663 carved on it, although it does look to me actually to be medieval, and quite possibly 1663 relates to it being restored to the church rather than actually having been carved at that point. Certainly the carving of 1663 seems to be a little bit crisper than the actual detail of the font. We also have here a little kitchen here, sink unit, and of course the toilet. Because here we're under a gallery. There's actually a west gallery. We'll have a better look at that, of course, when we're the other side of it. Now, here we have the oldest feature of the church, and this is a crucifix that dates probably from the 12th century. It's quite simple, it's quite naive, really, quite primitive. And it's one of the oldest pieces of church art in Derbyshire. There's the font again, a bit further out. Now you can just see the toilet door behind it. And I apologise for the lighting doing what it's doing. This is to do with the church lighting, it's not to do with my camera, and of course we don't have a massive lighting rig. There's stained glass windows practically everywhere. Here we have faith, hope and charity. In a vault at the west end of the church to deposit the remains of Thomas Guinness, who departed this life August the 7th, 1839, aged 55 years. Reader, whoever thou art, prepare thyself in the atoning blood of Christ to meet thy God. It's a good piece of advice to leave. You'll notice again we have these 15th, 16th century ceilings, these low roof line. Here we have, it is I, be not afraid, Christ walking on the water. To the glory of God, in loving memory of Samuel Cooper Austin, who was for 6 years at one time vicar of this parish, who died June the 8th, 1905. And then we have the Good Shepherd. Again, this is sheep farming country, of course, and this is 1888 this window dates from. Victorian pulpit. All that survives of the previous setup is the west gallery. Now, at one point you could get up there, but there's now health and safety and concerns. It's been the door at the bottom has a big no entry on it. Now this gallery, it's deep enough to say that this was for seating as well as for the gallery band. And of course I've got that relatively low roof up there, low pitched roof. And here we have the biggest memorial in the entire church in memory, influenced by a principle of gratitude to perpetuate the memory of his relation and benefactor Greenwood Holmes, late of Agnes Meadow in this parish, Gent, who departed this life the 14th day of June 1879. In the 51st year of this age, this monument was erected by his nephew John Hurd, who succeeded to his estate, and was the son of Edward Hurd by Anne his wife and sister to the above Greenwood Holmes. This stone informs you that his cold remains sleep here in earth, and rest secure from pains. But reader, should thy curious mind inquire, where lives his soul, warmed by seraphic fire, panting for heaven, it sought eternal joys, and fled to kindred souls in kindred skies. Transcribe his manners, for in them you'll trace all social duties and each Christian grace. Kind to his friends and faithful to his God, he trod through life the steps the saints have trod. Massive memorial. Here we have another, a later memorial, Victorian. And this simple whitewashed chancel. This reflects the small window and these square windows. It very much reflects on the simplicity and relative, I say relative because it's important, relative poverty of the parish. This isn't a place where there's been lots of money. Here we have a very small east window, Christ with Virgin Mary and Joseph. We've got here the windows are mostly plain glass, with a little bit of medieval glass in here, partly armorial, someone's coat of arms, and partly a few bits and pieces of other windows. So there was stained glass here in the Middle Ages, which of course isn't surprising. There's a lot of stained glass in most places in the Middle Ages. So there we are, looking all the way west. You can see that deep gallery that added accommodation. There would have been box pews down below, and of course they've gone and been replaced by the present benches. There's been a three-decker pulpit that's been replaced by the present much simpler open-fronted pulpit, which has then had the open front covered or concealed somewhat with those embroidered panels. You can see above there is the oil lamp, and of course before electric lighting, oil lamps were your primary form of lighting here. It had some candles perhaps, but oil lamps were safer, more reliable. You can see it's still in its mobile bracket. There would be other brackets along the walls, but it's still very much, you've had this change, high medieval, where it would have had no seats or just a few open benches, through with the box pews in the Georgian period and the West Gallery, and then the Victorians have opened up the seating again and changed the pulpit. And in the 20th century we've had the 21st century really, the toilets have been added at the back with the sink. The font, probably it was buried during the Commonwealth and then or thrown out and replaced with something more convenient like a basin, and then it's been reinstated afterwards in 1663, hence the date. We've got a rather nice simple tile floor there. So there we are. This is, I say, one of my favourite churches because of this simplicity, because it still feels very much like an old-fashioned village church in spite of these modern additions. Well, we go outside and have a look around there. So here we are outside at Kniverton. It's a bit difficult walking the shop because we are looking uphill here, or the camera is looking uphill at me. I've got sun off on this side. You can see the tower with its tiny little spire over there, and you've got the nave behind me, the porch, these square-headed windows that are quite simple, straightforward, honest building. And as we look around the churchyard and the outside of the building, we'll have a look at some of these features of this little village church. So first of all, simply the shape of it. It is a long and low building, and very much long as well as low. I think that's probably the old vicarage up there. but it's long and low, as we can see from here. I'm just trying to get down into the southeast corner of the graveyard, just to get an idea of how high up the church is. There's a little, let's have a look down here, there's a little brook runs down the bottom here. Here we've got someone's family graves. They're a bit overgrown to see who they were, but obviously something important. And that, the building, and you can see square-headed windows. And the Victorians just haven't had enough funds to be able to replace them with anything more fashionable, more quote-unquote medieval looking. It is, there's a number of these interesting 14th century churches around here, and God willing, should probably, well, it will be next year. Well, if this goes out in January, which it probably will, it'll be later this year, we'll have a look, because I'm recording this in November of 2021, but it won't go out, I don't think, until January of 2022. So later this year, God willing, have a look at some of these other churches in this area. You can see the east wall is actually leaning outwards slightly, and so the whole church is leaning in a general southward direction. The spire is only small, but gives a certain presence to it. There are other churches, I think particularly of one not far from here, a place called Bradley, where that church has a very similar construction, but no tower or spire. So the spire here gives Kniverton a little bit of extra presence. See the vestry, of course, that's a, oh, there's the, actually can't see very much at all, got the sun over the church. Quite striking view anyway. There's the vestry, which of course is very important. You've got your staircase there down to the boiler room in the basement, which, as I repeatedly say, is not a theological statement, much as it might be. And that wonderful outline there, you see the condensation trails in the sky, and no, they are not chemtrails. We don't go into that kind of thing around here. We don't do that here. Just a single window in the north wall originally, and then you've got your gallery window up there, because the gallery needs a bit more in the way of light. Rubble stone construction. This is just sort of put stones, pile stones together. No sign of a north doorway. Well, maybe there is a slight sign, but there must have been one, because it's a medieval church and they all had north doorways. Part of the design. And certainly something like this that has a south door, I would expect a north door. So we're round again, there's the old yew tree as expected, and we then come round to the porch, because the porch is quite interesting. It's, you can see above it there, the gallery window again. The porch is, looks 18th century to me with its arched doorway. But inside, as we go inside, we have, there we are, again the doorway looks 12th century, it looks Norman, probably the oldest part of the building, with its little head above it, looking balefully. And there's a little bit of carving there. Has it been partially reinstated, moved from somewhere else? But that baleful head. So St Michael and All Angels and Kniverton, and look outside from the porch. We have this rather nice view, this graveyard that slopes down to the brook in the valley below. Well, that's St Michael and All Angels, Kniverton. To say a few words in closing and end the video. And so there we go, St Michael and All Angels, Kniverton. It's a marvellous building. It's one of my favourite churches out here, nice and simple, one where the Victorians haven't gone to town, one that gives still a sense of being this little village church for ordinary people, and not something that's been done up by some big posh big house family who just want to show off their wealth. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I say I've enjoyed making it. I enjoyed coming out on these days. I'm not sure there'll be very many left for me to come and make them in 2021. As I say, this video will be going out probably in 2022. So I hope you enjoyed it, and may God bless you and keep you at this time.